We're starting a new Monday series this week in which we'll be looking at one of the key figures in the early church, a guy called James. Now, there were a lot of Jameses in the Bible, just as there were a lot of Marys in the Bible as well, just as there are a lot of Lindas here I was working at. I think we've got 5 Lindas among us today. I'm not saying it's a common name, but yeah. It's quite difficult to distinguish unless we know surnames. Unfortunately, we don't know many surnames of people in the Bible. So which James are we talking about? Well, we're not talking about the one who was one of Jesus' 12 disciples, James, the brother of John, who together were the sons of Zebedee. Neither is it the other of Jesus' 12 disciples called James. There were 2 Jameses in the 12. This is James, the son of Alphaeus. We're not talking about him either. Instead, the James we're looking at wasn't one of Jesus' 12 disciples, but is instead first mentioned in Mark's gospel when some people are commenting on Jesus' identity, and they describe Jesus in this way. They say, isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? So the James we're going to be focusing on for the next few weeks is actually Jesus' brother, one of 4 brothers that Jesus had, and probably the eldest of these 4 since he's the first in that list of those that are named. Indeed, it's clear from this that Jesus also had at least 2 sisters, there's plural of sisters there, children that Mary and Joseph had after Jesus, and who helped to make up what would obviously then be quite the family unit of children as well. I don't know if you ever thought about how Jesus was perhaps as a big brother growing up, younger brothers and sisters. Maybe he was playing the peacemaker between sibling rivalries at times as well. I don't know however we imagine Jesus in his teenage and slightly younger years with his brothers and sisters, but it's comforting, I think, to know that Jesus understands all about the joys and perhaps the tensions that sometimes come from being part of a family. Our focus, though, for today and for the coming weeks is on Jesus' first brother, James. And while we don't know much about Jesus' relationship with James, there are a couple of passages in the Gospels that give us a glimpse as to how their family dynamics might have played out. For example, in Mark's Gospel, we're told of an occasion when Jesus entered a house, and again a crowd gathered so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. Quite a family, you can imagine there. It's quite a stark intervention from them because they thought Jesus was going mad. I mean, it must have been incredibly hard for Jesus to process his own family, his own flesh and blood turning against him, doubting his integrity and his credibility. And again, if we've ever gone through stressful or upsetting times with our families, then it's clear Jesus can very much empathize with us in that. It's interesting though, a little later on from this passage, there's a time when Jesus is once again told that his family are outside and want to see him. But Jesus replies to this request in this way. He says, who are my mother and my brothers? And he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. And it's not, I think, that Jesus gives up on his own family. Rather, he seems to be expanding his understanding of who his family truly is. Above all, it's the family of faith. And I guess as we look round in this circle here this morning, I hope there's some comfort to those of us who may feel distanced from some of our own family because we have got a different kind of family that we can each belong to as well. Then there's another passage in which an interaction between Jesus and his brothers is described. This time in John's Gospel. And Jesus has been teaching although the radical nature of what he's been saying meant that Jesus' life was already at risk. So we're told that after this, Jesus went around in Galilee. He didn't want to go about in Judea because the Jewish leaders there were looking for a way to kill him. But Jesus' brothers said to him, "Leave Galilee and go to Judea so that your disciples there may see the works you do. No one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. Since you're doing these things, show yourself to the world." For even his own brothers did not believe in him. And again, it's a pretty revealing passage. Firstly, because it seems there's actually very little consideration from these brothers about Jesus' safety. They're encouraging him to take the risk of going to Judea where the Jewish leaders are out to get him. But secondly, I don't know if you pick it up here, it seems to me they make a bit of a dig at Jesus when they say, no one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. It sounds pretty snidey to me. Look, you're wanting this fame, this status, so off you go, do your thing, leave us alone. Whereas we know that Jesus was all about humility and service, not self-promotion. So the brothers, it seems here, misunderstood Jesus pretty profoundly. Indeed, I think it's clear that sadly, Jesus' brothers, no doubt led by the eldest of the brothers, James, had a distinct lack of care, lack of trust, lack of faith in Jesus. That last line there, for we're told that even his own brothers did not believe in him. And you can imagine for Jesus, 30 odd years of having brothers and sisters around him. It's clear that would have been heartbreaking, I think, for Jesus to process. And yet, although James and the rest of Jesus' brothers and sisters barely appear in the rest of the Gospels, presumably because they'd effectively given up on Jesus, it's clear that Jesus himself never gives up on them. In fact, as it turns out, following his resurrection, Jesus makes a special point of appearing to his brother James. As Paul shares in his first letter to the Corinthians, he tells us that Jesus appeared to Peter and then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 of the believers at the same time. Then he appeared to James and then to all the apostles. And although the Bible doesn't tell us much about this encounter, it's clear that there's a specific point that Jesus makes of appearing to James, his brother. And it's clear from what comes next that James's heart was changed on seeing the resurrected Jesus. Indeed, there's an early church writer called Jerome. He quotes what is a now lost Gospel of the Hebrews. We haven't got it, but he quotes from it. And in this, it says that James had apparently believed the testimony of the disciples that Jesus has risen from the dead and was indicating that he would long to see Jesus himself. Indeed, we're told in this lost gospel that James commits to fasting until he sees the risen Jesus. And then Jesus does indeed appear to him, gives him bread and wine, and says, "My brother, eat your bread, for the Son of Man is risen from among them that sleep." And as we'll see, hopefully over the coming weeks, James's life was transformed from that point onwards, it seems, from being someone who didn't believe in Jesus to becoming one of his most devoted and influential followers. So all that's to come over the next few weeks, and we'll unpack what James' legacy is to us today. And I guess although today has been perhaps a bit of an introduction to James, I think there's actually enough already for us to be encouraged. Indeed, we're encouraged by Jesus' ability to understand and empathize with complicated family dynamics. We can be encouraged by James's willingness to believe the testimony of the disciples that Jesus had risen from the dead. And we can be encouraged most of all by the risen Jesus' willingness to persevere with his brother James by having what must have been a pretty emotional and life-shaping encounter, almost like a post-resurrection resetting of their relationship to such a degree that James, as we'll come to see, goes on to be a key leader in the first early church. So wherever we're at in our faith, wherever we're at perhaps with our own families, I guess my hope is that we may encounter the empathy and the encouragement of Jesus in our lives so that we can perhaps be like James in placing our ultimate trust in Jesus. Amen.